Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this webinar. We're excited to share some things with you, and we're really excited because we have a special guest with us. And I'm here. My name is Steve England. I'm president of EvidenceOnQ. I've been with EvidenceOnQ since we started it back in 1996, and I have with me Jessica Bullock, who is the property and evidence manager from Melbourne Police Department in Florida. Jessica, you want to say hi just to make sure that everybody can hear you?
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. And so, Jessica, let's start off by giving a little bit of background on your situation there. From what I understand, you were voted the Evidence Tech of the Year by PEEF, the Florida Property and Evidence Association. So obviously you have a real passion for property and evidence management, and you have good taste since you use EvidenceOnQ. But tell us a little bit about your kind of career path, your journey to where you are, and anything else you want to let us know about you.
So, like Steve said, I work for the Melbourne Police Department. I've been here in Florida for 5 years. I started out in 2003, so gosh, it's been, almost 18 years? Am I calculating that right? 19 years? I can't do the math right now.
Yeah.
But a long time. I started out in Baltimore County in Maryland as a CSI. Worked there for a couple of years, moved out to the suburbs to a sheriff's office where they hired me to start up a crime scene unit, but also take over their property room and kind of fix a couple things that they had going on there. So I stayed with the sheriff's office for 9 years. Had a lot of fun there. But then decided that the cold weather was not for me, and I was done working in the snow and ice. So if any of you are from up north, you know what I mean. So then we moved down to sunny Florida. I've been down here for 5 years now. When I came on board here, we had a lot of evidence. And when I say a lot of evidence, our best guess is over 300,000 items. But we really had no idea how much we had because, and in talking to a lot of other property rooms, I think a lot of us are this way, we had a lot of old systems that we were using here. And as we got new systems, the old systems weren't integrated. So we were still tracking things with paper and pen. We had an Excel spreadsheet we were tracking things on, an Access database. We were trying to use our RMS system, the property module that our RMS system had to try to track our evidence, but I learned years ago that those aren't true evidence management systems. So as soon as I came on board here, I knew we had to do two things. I knew we had to clean up the room and get rid of about 2/3 of the evidence that we were storing that we didn't need, and we needed to get a true evidence management system, something that gave us the ability to do audits and inventories and track where things have been and where they need to go, and most importantly, be able to find things when we need to find them. So we went out to bid. We got lots of demonstrations from different companies, and we found EvidenceOnQ, and we went live with EvidenceOnQ the beginning of 2018, so almost 4 years ago now.
Excellent. Thank you.
And since then, we've narrowed our inventory down to about 80,000 items now.
Wow. That is a huge difference. And how many sworn officers do you have there at Melbourne?
We have about 170.
Okay, so that gives people a kind of an idea of what the size that you are there. And how many other evidence techs do you have there?
We have myself and 3 property techs.
Okay, great. Great. And so you've been using EvidenceOnQ since, like you said, implemented in 2018. And and now you've just recently decided to upgrade to our platform that we'll be talking about a little bit here today with people. And the platform including Digital on Q and FoundDrop and some other EvidenceOnQ features potentially there. And so yeah, I'm excited to kind of go through some of these highlights here. One of the things, just so everybody knows, we haven't rehearsed this in the sense that Jessica has any prepared answers. We decided what topics we want to talk about, but we're going to leave this kind of free flow. And then also, if you have any questions, there is in the chat area of this meeting, you can pose a question, and if we have time at the end, we'll get to those. But also, Jessica has graciously said that if you have any questions for her about evidence management in general, or her experience with EvidenceOnQ, or maybe her prognostication for college football or whatever, I don't know, whatever the questions people might have, but she said she'd be happy to be a resource. And again, she's the was voted a Evidence Tech of the Year, so she's obviously got some knowledge, and you can hear from her experience with different departments and a number of years of experience. So thank you for doing that. So what I'm going to do is Jessica, I'm going to go ahead and click us to this next slide here. And I'm going to just give people a quick overview here before we get into more dialogue of kind of question and answer here, Jessica. But the thing I wanted to highlight up front here, just so that you know what we're talking about when we talk about the platform, is some of you might be EvidenceOnQ users currently, and so you know that EvidenceOnQ, just like Jessica said, does a great job of managing, not just cataloging your evidence, and so all that physical evidence that you collect, and whether that's just the average stuff that runs the gamut of from rocks to bumpers to front doors to mattresses to all things in between. And then, of course, those very, let's call them high value, high risk items of like guns, money, drugs, sexual assault kits, and so on. All of that falls into that purview of what EvidenceOnQ manages. But also, you've got more and more found property that you're bringing in, and we want to talk to that responsibility as well, and how you meet all those responsibilities. And then digital evidence. Digital evidence is just continuing to grow and grow and grow, and we see it everywhere, both being generated from our own departments, but also out in the great wide world. There, everybody has a recording device now, at least one, and probably if I took inventory, I have probably 8, based on the phone I have, the iPad I have, the cameras I have around my house, the one I have on my car. So all of us are recording things all the time, and a lot of times that gets submitted as evidence. And then, of course, you've got the pictures taken at crime scenes and so on. So all of that needs to be managed as well, and that's a growing concern. So we want to address that. And again, we want to take into consideration all of your responsibilities, and we need to draw a circle around those and define those and say, hey, these are the responsibilities we have. And then not only do we want to look at the things that you're managing, but we want to take a look at who are all of the people that have a responsibility for, or you have a responsibility to, when it comes to property and evidence management. And so you can see the list there underneath public safety, all the way from the chief to the city council, records managers in the records department that you integrate and talk to and share information between. You've got your crime scene and your evidence techs and your patrol officers, your investigators, and then, of course, ultimately, a lot of these cases end up in court, so you've got prosecutors and DA. And we want to take all of that into consideration and make sure that we're providing, again, solutions that meet those needs. And then, of course, ultimately, we do all of this for the community. We're serving the community, and so we've got to interact and interface with the owners and victims, and sometimes in sad situations, we're not dealing with victims anymore. We're dealing with the family of victims. So all of those responsibilities need to be taken into consideration. And that's really what our platform addresses. It's not just physical evidence. It addresses all those things. So we'll get into the bits and pieces of that because, again, we can't certainly dive into all of that in the time that we have here. but we'll make sure that we cover some of the highlights, the ones that Jessica has told us that, hey, these really made a difference for us when we were either making a decision on what solution to go with, or as we've started to use the solution, we know that these are things that make a difference for us. So that's again kind of where we're headed here. So the first thing that Jessica told us when we said, hey, what was one of the things that was important about EvidenceOnQ? And she had mentioned the fact that it's completely flexible as far as the home screen and the reports. So Jessica, you want to just quickly tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I know I'm not alone in saying this, but if you've worked in evidence for any amount of time, you're going to notice that we're constantly changing things. So as we find things work, as we find things don't work, we need to change them, make them better, make it easier for the officer. And one thing that I love about FileNQ is the home screen. So when the officers open FileNQ, they see one screen. There's one screen that they have to work with. There's not a lot of choices that they need to make. And we were able to customize that home screen that they see for the needs of our officers. And over the last 4 years, we've kind of talked to the officers to find out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And as we get feedback, I can add that to the screens. One of the big hot topic issues down here in Florida and probably across the country is RPOs, risk protection orders. So we're starting to get a lot more firearms in reference to these RPOs, but they have their own set of retention guidelines and different laws that we have to follow. So one thing that we did, you can see on the screen, we added a section just for RPOs. So we never want to accidentally release a gun to somebody that shouldn't have it. So we added this so that everybody's on the same page, literally. Everybody knows if the RPO is still active. Before a gun can be released back to the owner that had the RPO, the petitioner that filed for the RPO has to be notified. So the gun can't leave our office until that petitioner is notified. So right there on the screen, as soon as we pull it up, we can see whether or not it's active, if they've been notified. And right from the beginning, we know if this case is related to an RPO.
Excellent.
But that's just one of the changes we made, and it's so easy. It takes me 30 seconds to go in and make a change that the officers need to see.
Yeah, and once you make that change, one of the great things is, again, you have the power to do that, but also then it's automatically propagated throughout the department. You don't have to go and update a bunch of computers and so on. It just happens both through the desktop client and the web client. And again, that home screen, to those of you who've experienced EvidenceOnQ, you know that you've got a home screen that's completely different than everybody else's, or exactly different, as I always say. Because you guys do the same things, but you do things in slightly different ways, so we can accommodate that. And then any changing requirements that you have, again, because think back to what I was saying about the responsibilities. All of a sudden, this is a new responsibility that's been put on Jessica's department there in property and evidence is, hey, you need to manage these RPO orders. And so now she's got a tool that allows her to actually take control of those things. So one other thing, Jessica, if you don't mind, I'm gonna come out of our presentation here for a minute, and I'm going to show another example here. Are you seeing my screen, Jessica? The application now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So one of the things, as an example that I'll show for another department that we did is here's again a home screen that again is slightly different than what we just showed as far as a screenshot for Melbourne's. But we had a department that was having issues with guns being turned in that weren't that were loaded, and for whatever reason, there was a rash of these over a couple of months. And so we were talking to them about something else, and they happened to mention this and said, "Was there anything that you can do about this?" And our immediate reaction was, well, what are we going to do about that? That sounds like a training issue. I mean, an officer has to physically look at the gun and make sure it's unloaded before we turn it in. But then when we got to think about it, we thought, you know what? I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we add a new field to your home screen called rendered safe? And we did that through the profiler, just like Jessica talked about, drag and drop and put it out there and save it and put the properties on it that it needs. And then what we did is we went in, we said, let's take that and let's go ahead and, because we've got certain fields that get turned on and turned off based on whatever your needs are, we could actually go in through this menu here and control that. So if I go over here and I find firearms, you'll see that I'm saying these are the fields that get turned on and are available for somebody to fill out when they're putting in information about a firearm that they're collecting. And you can see that we've got this rendered safe as now a required field. So they cannot go into the system and create a new firearm without first checking that box that says rendered safe, yes or no. So again, that doesn't literally make sure that the gun is unloaded, but it does give them a speed bump that says, hey, before you save this record, you're going to have to answer this question. So those are the kinds of things, with Jessica's example about the RPO and then this about the rendered safe, that you can do with the solution, with the EvidenceOnQ through the profiler, and you can make those changes. And if you've dealt with any other software company, chances are when you ask for those kinds of things, the answer is no, or the answer is yes, we can do that, but it's going to be X amount of dollars, or no, we can't do that right now, but we might consider doing it in the future. With our solution, you're able to just go in and do it on your own there immediately, or if you need help from us, of course, we would help you with that as well. So that's one of the things that's there. The other thing too, Jessica, you'd mentioned the reporting was also flexible, and that was one of the things that you liked. I think you mentioned the audit report in particular. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so. So the system comes, I guess, with some standard reports. But I've been working really closely with our sergeant that does all the audits, inventories for us as well as the rest of the agency, and working on revising all of our policies and procedures. And one of the things was our audits, and I was able to work with EvidenceOnQ and get an audit report that worked very well for our agency, where we can go in and we do several audits and inventories throughout the year, but the way that EvidenceOnQ has it set up for us, we can literally do any type of audit that we need at the time. Within seconds, we can pull up a report. So we can go into reports and go to the audit report. We can choose to audit firearms, money, drugs, whatever we need to at the time, and choose to do 10% of our firearms. So if we choose firearms and then we put in 10%, it'll randomly pull 10% of our firearms. Then we just need to go find them on the shelves. It cut the amount of time to prepare for an audit from a couple hours of preparation down to literally, you see it took, 15 seconds maybe to pull up that report.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that...
and the best part about it was...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when we were working on this report, it also was customizable. And, we needed something kind of outside of the box, and EvidenceOnQ worked with us to get us what we needed.
Yeah, the reports are all completely flexible, again, because everybody does similar things, but you all do it just slightly different. And because the fields on your home screen might be different, then of course we're going to accommodate that as well. But one of the nice things about the way that the audit report is laid out here is, again, you can just do a random sampling of whatever you want to do there, whether it's everything or certain kind of high risk items. But it also breaks it down into locations so that you can just walk through your property and evidence room and go over to the drug vault and pull these items, take a look at them, review them, and make notes here. There's a little verify checkbox. We also put the barcode on a lot of reports like this so that if you wanted to, you say, well, that doesn't seem right. I wonder what's going on with this item. You can make a little note on this report, walk back to your computer, pick up the scanner, scan that barcode. It automatically bring up the record. You can look at the audit and go through some of the history and so on to figure out maybe what an issue is. And so, yeah, that's a huge thing, and that's part of the solution there. And if you were to upgrade to the platform solution, that certainly would be part of what you get there. So, yeah, complete flexibility when it comes to the reports as well. So let's go back to our slides here, and let's go down to the next thing that we talked about. So here's the takeaway from this, and again, this is my summarization here. Very flexible to meet your needs and your changing needs. That's the big thing about the way that the EvidenceOnQ is set up there as the home screen. Hopefully we've illustrated that. So I know another big thing for you there, Jessica, especially when you start talking about dispositions and so on, is the way to automate these dispositions and the workflow there. So you want to give us just a quick kind of overview of that process for you guys?
Sure. So the automated disposition is something that we've been working with EvidenceOnQ for a couple of years. We went through a section of time when we were really, really low on staff, so we had to turn it off, and we're working on turning it back on. But this was one of our big selling points for EvidenceOnQ was the automated disposition. So what that does is when we were looking at EvidenceOnQ initially, that was back when we had 300,000 items-ish in our property room. And when you look at a number like that, knowing that most of it can go, but not knowing where to start, hearing the words automated disposition was like the holy grail. So what that does for you is if you have the workflow set up, EvidenceOnQ will notify the officer that those items belong to. We have ours set so that when the statute of limitations is met on an item, it notifies the officer that it's met its retention time, and then it asks the officer to respond back to us if it's okay to dispose of that item. So that takes the burden off of the property room, puts it back on the officer, but gives them that, hey, it's time to review this notification that otherwise he wouldn't have known that it was time to review that evidence. So I hope that makes sense. But so the officer gets an email automatically from EvidenceOnQ saying, review this item, let the property room know if it can be disposed of or returned back to the owner. That notification comes back to us, and we can get it off of our shelf.
Thank you, Jessica. Sorry, I put myself on mute there. Yeah, and the whole process is again, it's configurable. And one of the things that Jessica said, without saying it directly there, is that you're going to find that you're going to put a process in place, and then you're going to want to tweak it just because of the nature of this whole situation of dispositions and so on. And so, we've got some departments who say, I'm going to send these out every month. Some departments who say, I'm going to send these out, once a year, depending on, again, staffing and the size of the department and so on. Others say, I send this out once a month. And these are the things that are eligible. And again, they can set parameters on those things. And then also, if somebody hasn't responded to the first email, then I've got a second email that goes out as a reminder, and then maybe a third that gets elevated to, command staff and so on. So there's all kinds of things that you can do with this process here, because again, everybody does it a little bit different here. But the idea, the main idea is you want to get it as automated as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just again step away from our presentation here for a second, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that will kind of illustrate this. And I'm working between two screens here, so forgive me. I'm going to get rid of that.
And while you're pulling that up, I just want to
Sure.
reemphasize the fact that you can set those dispositions up. If you don't get a response from the officer the first time they get that notification, you can set it up that the following month or whenever you decide, it goes back to him again. There's nothing that the property room has to do to have that notification be sent back out. If it's still sitting on the shelf, file and queue knows it's still in inventory, the notification will go back out as a reminder, hey, please answer the property room and let them know if it can go.
Yes, thank you.
So it takes that workload totally off of the property room, which is just amazing.
Yeah, and that's the key, is we want to put the responsibility on the people who can actually take action on things. And so what I'm going to do here, and Jessica, again, you're seeing my screen again here, just with the big EvidenceOnQ logo.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I want to show you is it starts with the retention policies that you have, the retention disposition policies that you have. And so if I log in to one of my examples here, we have this utility that allows you to set this up so that all of your different retention codes that you've set up, and you can do that based on, hey, this is a no suspect misdemeanor case, for example, and our policy is to keep that for 3 years before we review it. Or we've got homicides, or we've got felonies, or we've got found property. Again, this is all completely controlled by you. But what you can do in this utility here is you can look at all of your different, in this case, I'm mapping it to my crime codes field on the main screen. And I'm saying, hey, when these crime codes are chosen, these retentions are the ones that need to be applied to that, so that it happens automatically. No one needs to make a decision when they're entering an item to say, oh, this is actually a felony, so therefore it has a retention of this long, and so on. All of that happens right up front and automatically based on what you've set up here as your policies. So that's one part of it. Again, you want to make it as automated as you can. There's work and there's thought at the beginning, but you want to make sure that you have that on autopilot in a lot of ways, but also have a way to go in and change things if you need to in the future. And of course, this would allow you to do that. So that's one thing that's part of the process. The other thing I wanted to show is if I go to, let's actually back up one more here. Let's go to WebView. Ignore those beautiful dashboard widgets for now. We'll come back to those. But let's say I want to go in and I want to do a search for a particular item, or as Jessica said, maybe I've got an email that's come to me from EvidenceOnQ that's automatically been sent to me. And so I click on that, and that takes me to where I want to be. But let's just say that I'm doing a search on a case, and I want to make a request for those items. So this is what they would do if they wanted to destroy something or keep something or hold something or send it to the lab. So they'd be able to look at an item or items and say, let's go ahead and make a request. And yes, I want to destroy this, or I want it to be held, or I want it to be sent to the crime lab. All of those things can be done here, but we're sticking with dispo here. So I'm going to say this is okay to be destroyed. And you can put a date, well, it can happen immediately or by the end of the week or whatever. Let's just go ahead and we'll stick with today's date. You can give a reason. I always like because is always a good reason, and it's the kind of thing that you get from your officers, right? And then you can also have them give you additional details about certain things if you want to. It can be destroyed immediately, or it can be destroyed after the review date is completed, and so on. And so they can provide you with additional information that you've given them. And so they'll make a request for it. And so again, one of the great things about the way that this whole system works is you, inside of the property and evidence room, you have something called the request monitor. And we weren't too creative about the name of it because it does just what it says it does. It monitors all the requests that have come in. And so if I look at those requests, where did it go? There it is. Whoop. Keeps jumping around on me here. Keeps showing up on the other screen here. Sorry about that. There we go. Now I can get a hold of it. So it does just what it sounds like. It monitors all the requests that people have made. Here's that one that we just made to be destroyed. So if you're going to go ahead and grab things for destruction, for example, you could go in and say, hey, out of this request monitor, show me everything that's okay to be destroyed. I'm going to select all of those. And then you can say query. And all of those will be put to the main form out here on EvidenceOnQ. And then I can print out a report for myself to go pull those things. So I go to property list, and it will give those to me by their current location. So I can walk through my evidence room, pull those items that are all eligible for destruction. So that whole thing works together. And again, the other nice thing about it is anytime that I do a request in the system, that is audited and part of the history here. So if someone comes back to you later and says, well, why did you destroy that? Well, here's the reason, because you told me that this was eligible for destruction back on this date and time. So lots of things that you can do between for the process, the beginning and the end of it there, to final disposition. A lot of flexibility, but again, a powerful tool there when it comes to disposition. All right, so I'm going to move on, Jessica, and summarize that by saying it's a completely configurable process for auto-assigning retention to notifications sent to investigators. Notifications sent to investigators to the request monitor. All of that is, again, completely configurable, and you can do fine-tuning for what makes sense for your department. You think that's a good summary, or anything else we need to say about that?
Nope, I think that kind of sums it up.
Good deal. Thank you. All right. So the next thing that you had talked about is you were excited about the possibility of those dashboard widgets, and I just showed those a second ago. I breezed right past them in our web view. So again, those of you who are familiar with EvidenceOnQ know that there is both a desktop client and a browser-based client. And in WebView, the latest version of WebView, you have the ability to set up any number of widgets. And these are just like gauges on your car. They give you instant feedback on certain things. And so these are, again, going to be things that you want to put around the things that you need to report on and the things that you want to monitor. So you might have an example here. This first widget is just a simple widget that says, hey, our policy is once we get $10,000 in our safe, we want to do a deposit. We don't ever want to keep more than $10,000 on hand. So here's just a quick gauge that shows you, hey, you've got $8,723. You're getting close to that deposit. Maybe you've got laws that say we've got to get sexual assault kits to the lab within a certain amount of time in collecting those. So we've got a widget here that says, hey, our policy is it has to get there within 14 days. So far, our average is 5 days. So we're doing pretty good there. And then maybe you want to keep track of things over time. And so here's this year so far, sexual assault kits received versus those that we've sent to the lab, firearms destroyed, returned this year every month. And by the way, you can turn some of these things on and off. And again, these are all based on whatever your particular needs are as to how we arrive at those. And sometimes you just want quick little, how many sexual assault kits did I send to the lab this month? How many do I have that are past that 14 days? What is the average number of days for an e-trace within our that we perform here and so on? So you can have some really kind of quick hit ones here. You can have references back to record groups, or in this case, my last inventory jobs might be the last 10 cases I entered or whatever. Again, because these are all based on permissions, and you can assign them to certain groups and users. And people only see what they need to see. And then, you can do pie graphs. Maybe I want to break down the drugs that we've brought in so far this year by the different drug types. Number of firearms returned this month. You see that. Here's just one that shows items added over time. And some of these you can drill right into. You can see, and by the way, you can always print or export these as well. And then number of items received versus released. So I can kind of see, hey, what's coming in, what's going out, how is that functioning? And then even if you've got a digital on Q solution as part of your of the platform, keep track of what your storage is, because again, maybe you've got certain storage capacity, either that you're renting in the cloud or you've got on site, and hey, I've only got so much space on this drive before I need to get an additional drive. So all of those things can be just at a quick glance here as you log into WebView. And Jessica, if I remember correctly, we're in the process of working with you to set these up for your department. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'm still super excited about it.
Well, yeah. So it again, in the sky's the limit as far as the things that you can do there, and so we will again work with each of you to set those up based on what your department needs. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our presentation here. So we've got the dashboard widgets, and again, real-time feedback and oversight for all the stakeholders. The other thing that I know a lot of people are interested in is integration with their RMS system or their lab system or whatever. We've actually done integrations with all kinds of different systems, but I'll let you speak to your experience here and kind of tell us, lessons learned and just again, kind of your personal experience with this.
So, our agency is kind of in a different situation, I guess you can say, than a lot of agencies when it comes to our integration for EvidenceOnQ with our RMS system. When we went live with EvidenceOnQ, we were in the process of phasing out our old RMS system and searching for a new, better fit for us as far as an RMS system goes. We're still in that process. So we're still kind of stuck in the same boat that we were when we started back in 2017, 2018. And I keep crossing my fingers that sometime soon in the future, we'll be back on track and using it the right way. But when I say we're using it a little bit different, we are using EvidenceOnQ backwards. Is that fair enough to say?
I thought it was upside down, but backwards works.
Yeah. So EvidenceOnQ is meant for the officer to enter the property or evidence directly into EvidenceOnQ. EvidenceOnQ then talk to the RMS system and send the information to their report, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So our agency uses it completely backwards. What we do is our officers start their RMS, start their report. While they're writing their report, they input their property into the property module of our RMS system, which then we built a bridge that connects our RMS to EvidenceOnQ, and we send it backwards. In doing that, we've run into a couple snags or some of the better features of EvidenceOnQ that we're unable to use, like the required fields, the mandatory fields that you were showing us earlier, Steve?
Yes.
Back at the beginning of the presentation. So unfortunately, because our officers enter the property into RMS and it comes to EvidenceOnQ, we're not able to set up required fields. What that has done is we get our officers get a lot of kickback emails, unfortunately, that they forgot to fill in information. So the example that you showed us with rendering the firearm safe, we couldn't make that a required field here. Because if we made that a required field, everything that's not a firearm would also error out. So we would have a lot of officers that would forget to check that the firearm was rendered safe before they submitted it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me because I've experienced that as well.
I hope that makes sense to everyone else that's listening.
Yeah. So let me.
So that's one of our downfalls.
Yeah. So let me ask you another question then. So they're filling out their information in the RMS system, and it's being sent over to our system, but that system doesn't have some controls that would say, hey, these are required fields, or what they have required aren't necessarily all the fields that you would want the officers to fill out, because you would want more information than they're required to give. And so
correct.
You will only get what is required in most cases if you don't ask for it, right? I mean, if you don't enforce that rule, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get just the minimal most of the time, right?
Right. So like one big thing is I was talking about earlier, prior to us getting EvidenceOnQ, we were using the property module in our RMS. Well, one big requirement when you submit evidence is to indicate the date and time that you obtained the evidence, the date and time that you collected it, right? So that's not a field in our RMS system. So the officers aren't putting in the property module in their report the time that they collected it. So it sounds like it's not a big deal to put your evidence into your report and it go into EvidenceOnQ, but it really is a big hindrance because now the officers are doing their report, putting their evidence in, it comes over to EvidenceOnQ. Now they still have to go into EvidenceOnQ, open that up, and edit the information that's missing, like the collected time, which is huge.
Yeah, and it gets back to that flexibility and that control that you have in EvidenceOnQ, where you can actually look at this to say, again, I go back to the very first thing I said, which is, what are my responsibilities here, and what are the things that I need in order to manage this, not just catalog it, because Excel catalogs things. You can just put things in a list there. But in fact, you'd have more control in a lot of cases, wouldn't you? But yeah, so when you start with the RMS system, sometimes, again, depending on their flexibility and what they have as their required fields and so on, and it varies from RMS company to RMS company, you're basically, at their mercy as to what it can be entered, what needs to be entered, and so ideally, what we recommend, if you can do this, is have the officers enter their evidence information into EvidenceOnQ. That way you have control over all of the fields that are there. And then we can send that data back to the RMS system, and that RMS system then can ingest that. And again, if you have certain fields in EvidenceOnQ that don't need to go back to the RMS, we can, through the integration, we can determine all of that. We don't have to send everything back, because there's some things that probably they don't have a place to put. But that way you control the intake of that evidence, and you're making sure that you get the consistent data that you need. You're getting all the data that you need, the required fields and so on, and then we can send that back. Now, the other part of that, Jessica, is I don't remember. Do you just have the one-time integration where they're just sending the information? Are we ever sending anything back to them, or are they sending additional updates or anything to us?
No, it's a one-way bridge.
Yeah. So again, what we would recommend is to have a two-way integration, and to start that from within EvidenceOnQ and send that information back. But again, a two-way integration is going to allow us to do a couple things. We can send that information over. Once, let's say, a case gets assigned to an investigator, that isn't known at the time when you fill out the evidence information in EvidenceOnQ, but that can come back out of the RMS into our system, into EvidenceOnQ, so that can be updated. That also helps with the dispositions, because now you know who to send the dispositions to say, hey, this is your case. You're responsible to review it and let us know what to do with it. And then also from there, you have the potential of maybe we want to send back information to the RMS system, to their property module that says, hey, this information, this evidence has been disposed in one way or another, so that they have kind of a reference to that as well. So we have a full-time dedicated team that does nothing but integrations. And Craig had some slides there that we showed at the beginning while you were in the waiting room there. We've integrated with just about anybody that's out there. So and we are able to integrate with anybody who's willing. But as Jessica said, I mean, the reality of it is it takes two to tango type of a thing, where you've got to have somebody who's willing to do the integration. And again, we find that most RMS companies are, if you as the customer say, this is what I want. But there are some limitations potentially in the other system if you start in their system and push it back to ours, just because of the limitations that they have in their software. And again, we have much more control and flexibility in EvidenceOnQ. So is that a good summary, Jessica, or is there anything else you want to add?
Nope. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, but it's real important, and we encourage departments and say, hey, you're going to get an RMS solution that hopefully does a great job at what it's supposed to do, but their property modules are still pretty much just cataloging type add-ons. They're not really there for doing the management like you need. And so let's get the best of both worlds. Let's get them talking to each other, but let's do it the right way, both for the officer to make their life easy, and then also those of you in the property and evidence room who have that responsibility. So let's go through our list here. Oh, see, I added a little something here, a little animation here. So I'll let you speak of FileNQ's awesome customer support. And just a disclaimer, I am not in the customer support team, although I consider myself doing customer support, because all of us have that as a mindset. But I'll let you brag on them for a little bit.
Yeah, I think everyone at FileNQ is customer support. I haven't spoken with, emailed with, had communications of any kind with anyone at FileNQ that hasn't been awesome. Anytime we've had any sort of issues, questions, concerns, I'll send an email, make a phone call, and everybody hops on board. If I talk to, let's say, Steve or Craig, and they don't know the answer, they'll point me in the direction, or they'll get a hold of somebody that can then help me with my problem or need or want or anything. I can't say enough good things about the customer support. And honestly, I don't think we've really run into any crazy major issues either in 4 years. I mean, system hasn't crashed. Our evidence is all still in there. All your nightmares that, you don't want to happen, none of those have happened, knock on wood. But I have full confidence in everybody in customer support that they would chip in and help out if something major did happen. So, I mean, the experience with everyone at FileNQ has been great, has been awesome.
I'm blushing
my word
over
of the
here.
day.
I'm blushing over here. Yeah, no, but again, I'm not involved in first line customer support and so on, but I do help when the need arises, and I can help as all of us do. But we use the same platform that we're doing this webinar for. We do our support with. So if Jessica had a problem, or anybody has a problem, or needs some additional training, or maybe she's saying, hey, we got to do this RPO stuff, and can you just kind of walk me through it, and how would I do that, and so on. we're available to do all of those kinds of things, and we can do that online with you and take a look at that. But every month we get a report from that gets generated from the GoTo support platform that we use, and because every time you do a session, a support session online, you can give feedback and so on. And this is the absolute truth. That report has been, I think, 30 months now that I've seen it, 30 months in a row where there has not been one negative comment on that. Everything has been 100% positive for our support people. And so that is huge, because when you're making an investment and a commitment to a software solution like this, you want to make sure that you have good support. And so we have people who are ex-law enforcement who've been there, done that, who care about making sure that you're well taken care of. We want to do ongoing support, not just from a technical side, but also ongoing training and so on. Because again, we know that a lot of people get cycled in and out of the property and evidence rooms. You get new hires, you get somebody reassigned or whatever. We want to make sure that people are using the system for all that it's worth there. And so I would say this, and maybe this is some of your experience too, without great customer support, great software is not great, and good software becomes awful. So even if you say, I've talked to a lot of people say, how's the software? Man, it's okay. I'm talking about the software that they're using, but the customer support just sucks. And so they're upset because they can't get answers. They got issues that never get resolved. They don't have training. They don't know how to use it. And so again, that's one of the things that we really, really want to make sure that we help you with. We've got a saying that we say, you've got an important job to do, and we want to help you do it with excellence. Excellence that's worth talking about. We want you to have a good reputation within your own department that says, man, Jessica and the property evidence people, they got it together. They're a great department down there. And then, of course, people like Jessica, and I'm sure a lot of you on the line here too, you've got a reputation also within the property and evidence community of doing a great job. And so you can lend some advice and share some of your knowledge that way too. So we want that for all of our customers. So thank you, Jessica, for that. Now we're going to turn a corner just a little bit here because we've talked about some of the things that you've been using for a number of years now when it comes to the EvidenceOnQ side. But as we mentioned up front, you've decided to go ahead and upgrade to our platform solution, which includes not only the evidence that you were using, EvidenceOnQ, but DigitalOnQ to manage digital evidence, and then FoundDrop to manage the found property. And we'll show those things here now. But I know that when we were talking originally, one of the things that you said that you really liked about the platform was now that you would have the tab in EvidenceOnQ to where you could see all the digital evidence. And so I'm going to go ahead and show that here. Are you seeing my screen again, Jessica? I just switched over.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I do a search in EvidenceOnQ, and this is the desktop or web view, but I'm going to do a search and bring back some records. And again, you'll see that we've got the results here. Those of you who are familiar with EvidenceOnQ, you'll know that it will always show in the lower right-hand corner one of 958 records that came back here. And so I can look at those one at a time, or I can go to the browse view and so on. But one of the new views that you have if you have DigitalOnQ as part of the platform is if I click on the DigitalOnQ tab, one of the things that you'll notice is I can see all of the digital evidence that is associated with this case as well. I say all of it based on my permissions, of course. And sometimes people show the icons and sometimes they don't. Again, that's a permission-driven thing because maybe you don't want people to see this kind of a detail there. You just want them to know, hey, there's images and other unknown file formats back there. But if you want to set it up this way, you can double-click, and it will open up DigitalOnQ directly, and you'll be able to go into DigitalOnQ to view. Sorry, it's on the wrong screen here. There we go. And you'll be able to view within DigitalOnQ all of those things within that particular case. And so whether they're photographs, whether they're videos, whether they're audio clips, again, from whatever sources, right? Could be crime scene photos, could be security camera photos from a convenience store. Any of those things can be seen here and managed within the system. And one of the things too about EvidenceOnQ is um, it will manage the evidence, the digital evidence here, in a way that is not possible. Like if you have eDocs, some people have eDocs, and you can attach electronic documents for references. Sometimes maybe you'll take a copy of somebody's license, or maybe you'll attach a lab report or something like that into EvidenceOnQ. You can use it for a lot of different things. But that eDocs doesn't keep track of digital evidence in a way that you'd actually be able to go to court and testify and say, yeah, this is the original photograph that came off of this camera, and I know specifically what has happened to it since, whether it's been downloaded, shared, viewed, and so on. And then also, we can ensure that the original hasn't been tampered with at all. But if somebody did have a piece of evidence that they wanted to enhance in some way, then you can have what's known as a parent-child relationship. So we never change the original, but you can create children, if you will, modified things where maybe you enhance. So I just did a quick little circle on this can because I wanted to highlight, hey, look at that. That's I don't know what that is, some kind of a light beer can. And hey, we know that suspect drinks only that brand of beer. Haha, we've caught him. So anyways, those are the kinds of things that you can do. And then again, show up in court to say, yes, this is the original photograph as it came off. Or maybe you don't have the original photograph or the original video because it was given to you on a DVD by the property owner, or something like that. You were given a copy by another agency. So when you upload that, you can put that comment in because it'll say, hey, this isn't from the original source. You can say, yes, I know we got this from a DVD from the victim. That becomes then again part of the audit trail, the chain of custody for that item. But then once it's in EvidenceOnQ, we're keeping track of it in such a way, we're hashing it, as the technical term, to make sure that nothing is getting changed about that, even to right down to the pixel. And so that's important as you go to court and make sure that all of that's there. But again, from your standpoint as a department, when you're in EvidenceOnQ, if you do that search, you're able to see, your investigators are able to see all physical as well as digital evidence quickly when they do a query, which is really great. And what we find is that in a lot of departments, you've got things that are being put on thumb drives here. They're being copied to DVDs. You might be spending a lot of time downloading and copying DVDs and sending them around. And once that happens, we don't really know what's going with them. In fact, if you've followed some of the court cases lately, and most of them, they're unavoidable, that you can't escape following them. But the one in particular, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial that just happened here, you might remember before the verdict came in, the defense said, hey, we want a potential mistrial here because what we've discovered is that the prosecutor gave us a copy of a certain video that was key to their prosecution that was different than the one they gave us. And come to find out, what had happened is they gave them a copy that was of a lower resolution than the other. It was half the size of the other one. So they couldn't see a lot of the detail that was in the one that the prosecution was using. And so that potentially could have been a mistrial. As it turned out, it was a moot point. But those are the kinds of things that you want to avoid. And we see that all the time in departments where, I keep it on a thumb drive, or I've got this folder that we're copying certain things to, and we've got another folder somewhere, I think, where we keep the other stuff. And this allows you to bring it all into one place and manage it. But another thing that you can do, rather than do those copies of DVDs and thumb drives and those kinds of things, is you could actually go into this and say, hey, I want to share one, all, or some of these photos with somebody. And so rather than burn and download them, you can actually say, I'm going to share these. and I want to just share these 3 selected, let's say, and I can send an email to somebody and say, hey, you have the ability to view these now, and I can set an expiration date. You can view them till the end of the month, and you can set that however you want. And then I'm going to put in an email here, and I'll just send it to myself so I can quickly get at it here. And I'm going to go ahead and share that now. Now, the nice thing is that's all part of the audit trail now. It's going to say this these items were shared with this person, and that would be part of the audit trail. But if I go back to my email here, here's just a simple email that I've sent myself that says, hey, someone shared some of this stuff with you here. If you go here, click on this link and use your email address, and then use this password that we've generated for you, you'll be able to see those. So I'll click here. That'll open up EvidenceOnQ Share. I can put that information in and log in, and I can see those things that have been shared or anything else, because I might have multiple cases that are shared with me as well. But those are there now, and you can see we can put watermarks on things and so on. And again, that's a great way to share that securely, and then making sure that I'm consistently sharing the same things as well as documenting what's being shared. Now I know when people view this as well through the share and so on. So that's a really great feature of EvidenceOnQ. So I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint here, and we're getting here in the home stretch here. Jessica, I kind of took over that little section there. Do you anything you want to add? Sorry. I'm going to review these. Yes, that's awesome. EvidenceOnQ. So again, takeaway. I can query all the evidence, both physical and digital, inside EvidenceOnQ and go there. And then, of course, I can stop wasting time burning and copying CDs and ensure the digital evidence integrity using that. Okay. You okay with that, Jessica? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, thanks. So then here's our last item here to cover, which is Found Drop. And Found Drop is one of those things that accomplishes a lot of different things, and you can boil it down to, though, is you've got a lot of property that you don't know where it belongs, who it belongs to, does it belong to any cases, and so a lot of times that is part of the thing that gets things clogged up as well in your systems there. And so, Jessica, have we implemented Found Drop yet, or is that something that is just, again, because you've just upgraded to the platform?
It's on our to-do list. We're working on it.
Okay, great. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to, again, escape out of this, and I'm going to show everybody a quick overview of Found Drop. Found Drop's actually a public site that you could go out to right now and go to founddrop.com, and you would see it here. But the idea here, again, is to reunite people with their lost or stolen items, as well as connect property between police departments. Maybe you've recovered something in your jurisdiction that really the department next to you would really want to know that you've recovered, but they don't know that you have it, and you don't know that they want it. And so all of those things can be joined in here. And I would encourage you later to just go out to this founddrop.com, and there's a nice video here that kind of summarizes some things. But at its very basics, I could go in and I could do a search. Let's say I'm somebody in the public and I've lost my keys, and I want to do a search for my keys. I could just put keys in, or Honda keys, or whatever I want to, and it will take me to a list of all recovered keys here. And I might look at, you see that some of these departments have chosen to put pictures out there of these keys, and I say, hey, those look like my keys right there. I can click here, and now I know who to contact. Oh, it looks like the Tucson Police Department has recovered my keys. I see all this information here. But the other thing that happens through Found Drop is we put together for you, in this case, Tucson Police Department, a list of all of their property and evidence, or property that they've recovered there. And so that is showing up here. They have a link to this off of their website, And so anybody who goes out to their website can click here and they'll be able to see all their found property and evidence. So it's a huge, huge benefit to the property and evidence folks. And in fact, if you look at the integration that we've done between the two systems, if I go in and I take a look at this, let me just again, a nice little utility that you can set this up so that it's automated, because we don't want you to have to deal with this every day. We want to kind of have this on autopilot as best we can. Sorry, let me log into what I want to do here. And what you'll be able to do is, based on your own criteria, you'll be able to say, hey, I want this to never be sent out there. So if we bring in something underneath our drug collection program, I'm probably not going to put that out there on the Found Drop site for people to claim. Although, hey, that might work as a good way to make more drug arrests. So anyways, but you've got that evidence, we can send out or not send out. Homicide stuff, never send. Found property, we always send out to the public side of things. Safekeeping and so on. So you have control over that. And then the next level is based on item type. What are you sending out? What aren't you sending out? And then also some things you could say, well, it's okay if we send them out there, but I've got to first approve them. And I click a little box that says, yeah, this can go up there. Or things just automatically go up there. Locations, we would sort out certain things. Hey, don't bother sending things up to Found Drop if certain things are in these certain locations, because we don't have them. They've been destroyed. They've been returned to owner or whatever. And then there's the Found Drop categories out there on the site, and then the mapping between EvidenceOnQ fields and Found Drop fields. And then again, you set this up so that it automatically runs at a scheduled event once a day or twice a day or however you want to do it, and things will automatically post out to Found Drop. And then from there, if somebody doesn't claim something, Found Drop also has, as part of its solution, where you can go in and you can say, this should only be out on the site for 30 days, for 60 days, whatever. And it will age off of there for you and let you know these are things that you can now dispose of in whatever way you're going to do that, because nobody's claimed them. I know that some jurisdictions, Jessica, do you have a policy or a law that says you have to post this somewhere, found property, in a newspaper or on a website, or make some kind of public declaration of it before you get rid of it?
We do. So there's a couple different things, but state statute says that if it's valued over $100, we have to post it. We go ahead and post all of our found items in our lobby, and we also post it on our website. But I can't wait for Found Drop for so many different reasons, but it's going to save me hours and hours of time. Right now I have to search our found property list, make sure we still have the item, put it on a list, get it over to City Hall. It's really time consuming right now. So when Found Drop is up and running, it's going to make my life a lot easier, to say the least.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the great thing about it is, again, it's such a manual process to have to meet that requirement. And you want to do that. Again, you get back to what we were talking about before. You want to meet those responsibilities that you have to the public, but boy, it's sometimes I'm sure it seems like this is not worth the effort. And so you can get it out there. But again, if something is claimed, if people are reunited with things, of course they love that, and that's a win for your department as well. And sometimes it's not just the, so I lost, my bike, big deal. You guys are so fed up with dealing with bikes. But just returning one would probably feel like a real win. But sometimes it's things that are really of value and sentimental and so on. We've got some neat stories of things that are, hey, this was my grandfather's from World War II. It was a medal or whatever. And so reuniting those kinds of things with people is a huge win for your department. And so Found Drop, that's something, again, that's part of the platform. And we're excited to get that set up for you. And as you can see, it doesn't take hardly any time at all. Just set up that there, and you'll have those things there. So help property find itself. for owners and officers. I didn't get into that part, but there's a whole other investigative part of it to where, again, officers can put together what we call a hit list, is basically like a BOLO. And if something gets returned within whatever radius, or collected, I should say, within whatever radius that they set for other departments, then they would be notified, hey, we recovered a 9mm. Oh, I was curious. That might be connected with what the case I'm working or something. So again, really important thing.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It cut out. Yeah, I wanted to mention too, what I'm going to do is post this webinar tomorrow when an email goes out with the recording. I'm going to include a link to a BOLO video of Found Drop. We have a little animated overview video where we show that BOLO in function that you just mentioned. And so people can get an idea, a better grasp of some of the additional capabilities that Found Drop has.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Craig. And this webinar will be available too, a link back to it if you want to watch this again. So, Jessica, thank you for walking us through all of that and sharing with us your insights and your experience. And to kind of wrap up, I'm just going to let people know again, some of you are EvidenceOnQ users. Some of you might not be, but are considering that. This platform that we have now allows you to get EvidenceOnQ, DigitalOnQ, and FoundDrop all working together, as you've seen how they integrate. And again, all of that flexibility and the expertise that Jessica has talked about that she's really appreciated. And again, it will meet all of the responsibilities that you have there. And when you do that, you eliminate some of the risks that you have and streamline some of those repetitive tasks. As again, Jessica has mentioned a couple of things, just this last one about FoundDrop, these repetitive tasks of always having to do this work. That can be eliminated and handled for you. And so this platform is done in a monthly subscription price. Again, another thing that we found is that budgets are really tight for departments, and trying to get capital monies is tight. But if you can set aside a monthly subscription that will then you can leverage, that's a lot cheaper than if you can't afford a full-time staff member. And that's something that you've been really trying to push, but that's not going to happen. Hey, a $500, I'm throwing numbers out, $500 investment every month would be a huge return for you on all kinds of different ways. And this platform includes all the modules. And so if you're using EvidenceOnQ and there's modules you don't have, those can be included in part of that. We cover the peripheral hardware, barcode scanners and printers for their lifetime. So if something was to break, we would replace it. Of course, the ongoing maintenance and support. All ongoing upgrades are also covered in that. With the current situation, if you buy the software, pay maintenance and support, you get the in-version upgrades, but there's a charge usually for the major upgrades from like 7 to 8, 8 to 9, and so on. But all upgrades are included in the platform. And then ongoing training, which again is so important to make sure that everybody's using the software the way that they should to its fullest capabilities. And then, of course, RMS integration, that also is part of this package, this platform. So EvidenceOnQ, DigitalOnQ, FoundDrop, all working together, all of these things for a monthly subscription price. And so, again, I'll say it again. We really know that you have an important job to do, and we just want to help empower you to do that with excellence. And we're so happy that Jessica and Melbourne are able to do that. And of course, it isn't done just through software, because it doesn't matter what software you have if you don't have very capable people on the other end. And Jessica, as you've discovered, is very, very, very capable, knowledgeable, and passionate about property and evidence management there for Melbourne, and that reflects very well on her and her department. And so, Jessica, thank you for spending time with us today. Is there anything you want to say in closing here?
Just if anybody has any questions or about FileNQ, about anything, I'm always available. Might take me a little bit of time to get back to you, but shoot me an email. It's always the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm bad, and I check my emails when I'm off also. So reach out to me anytime that you need something, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. How can I get my contact information out to them?
Yeah, so what we'll do, Jessica, is an email will go out tomorrow with some information in it, the link to this video, the link to the Bolo, and I'll include your email address in there for them. And would you primarily want to do email, phone? Phone, it might be a little more challenge, correct?
Yeah, email's always best.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll do that. And at the end of the webinar here, when everybody exits out, there's a brief survey for those of you that would like to ask some additional questions. Let us know how we did. Give us some feedback. I think it's 4 or 5 short questions. So if there's something particular that was not addressed here, or you're a little confused about something, or you want to see something more, that's your opportunity to let us know about that. And also in the GoToWebinar control panel, there's some handouts there. If anybody wants to download something of interest there's one on EvidenceOnQ, one on FoundDrop, one on the whole platform itself and its capabilities and flexibility and more. So feel free to download those. We'll let you do that. I did have one question. You kind of addressed it, Steve, but I did say to let Darcy know that I would share it. This would be for current users out there. And she had asked, are there any differences with the software with the subscription plan?
So the software per se is the same.
And you're on mute, Steve, if you're...
how about now? It says I'm unmuted.
No, you're unmuted. You're good.
Okay. So the software per se is not different. However, there are some modules that perhaps people don't have that would be enabled and implemented as part of the platform solution. So that might be things like maybe people don't have the automated notifications and they want that. We've got some departments who, when they originally purchased, they didn't want WebView or couldn't afford WebView or whatever. And so that might be something that they don't have. So the software itself is the same. The difference is there might be some modules that people didn't have that would be implemented as part of this if they want to do that. So was that the only question there, Craig, that we needed to address real quick? I want to say thank you for this and everybody attending, but also, hey, we're available to do online demos with you as well, so that we can actually get online, be able to talk to each other, and we can slow things down and talk about the things that you want to talk about, get the questions that you have specifically. And so we're always available and happy to do that. So if you're somebody who's considering FileOnQ, please do that. Contact us, let us know, and we'll be happy to do that. Or if you're somebody who's using the system and you've heard about some things or you've got some questions that you want answered, again, of course, contact us with that as well. But again, thank you everyone for attending and sticking with us. I know that we went a little bit over here, and thank you again to Jessica for sharing again your knowledge with us and your passion for property and evidence management, and for the nice things that you said about us as well, of course. But appreciate that, everyone, and just have a great rest of the week. And if we don't talk to you before now and then, have a great holiday and New Year, and hope to talk to you in 2022.
Thank you, everyone.